"Don't embarrass me, Mom. Just stay in your room when they get here." She slammed the door so hard the picture frames in the hallway rattled. I stood there, still holding the homemade birthday cake I'd spent all night baking. Chocolate with vanilla frosting. Madison's favorite, at least it used to be. I had even shaped the frosting into little roses, uneven and slightly messy, but full of love. Now, the silence in the hallway was louder than her scream. Her 16th birthday, a sweet 16. A day I had worked overtime for, skipped lunch breaks, sold my vintage sewing machine, bought party plates and streamers from the clearance bin at Dollar City, spent 3 days on Pinterest trying to make cheap look charming, and in one sentence, "Don't embarrass me," she reduced all of it to nothing. I didn't say anything right away. Not because I had nothing to say, but because there was no room for it. That hallway had been swallowed by shame, hers and mine, and all I could do was stand still with a cake that suddenly felt too heavy to carry. My mother, Susan, stepped out from the kitchen and saw my face. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. "She doesn't mean it," she said gently. But I knew better. She did mean it. Madison, my daughter, my only child, meant every word, and that made it hurt more than if she hadn't. I carried the cake to the kitchen and set it down. The icing had smudged slightly from how hard I'd gripped the container. I tried to smooth it with a butter knife, tried to fix something I knew was already broken. And then I heard it, upstairs, laughter, her voice. Madison on the phone with one of her friends. She's making some sad little cake. Like, can she just not be poor for one day? My hands stopped moving. My throat burned. Not because I was angry, not even because I was humiliated, but because it wasn't supposed to be like this. Madison used to look at me like I was her entire world. She used to sit on the counter and dip her fingers in the frosting and call me the best mom in the galaxy. Now, I was the thing she wanted to hide. My mother came and rested a hand on my shoulder. "You still going to stay downstairs when they come?" "I don't know," I whispered. Part of me wanted to disappear, let Madison have her party without me. Let her pretend I was someone else, someone richer, fancier, quieter. But another part of me, the part that's raised her alone for 16 years, through breakups, job losses, hospital bills, and PTA meetings, wanted to be seen. Not for Madison's approval, but because I had done everything right and I wasn't going to be erased on my own kitchen floor. So I stood up straighter. I adjusted the tablecloth, lit the candles, fixed the crooked "Happy Birthday" sign above the window, placed the cake in the center of the table like it belonged there. Then I walked into the living room, smoothed out my dress, and sat down on the couch. If she wanted to be ashamed, that was her choice. But I wasn't going to hide from my daughter's friends. I wasn't going to hide from the life I'd built. What she didn't know was who was coming through that door. And when the guests arrived, everything she thought she knew about me would fall apart. People say being a single mom gets easier as your kid gets older. They say, at least she can take care of herself now, or teenagers are tough on everyone. But they don't see the way your daughter's eyes shift when her friends are around. They don't hear the quiet heartbreak in your chest when your child looks through you instead of at you. I've been a single mom for 16 years. Madison was born 2 months after her father left. He said he wasn't ready, said he'd check in. I stopped waiting around the time she learned how to walk. We moved in with my mother, Susan, when Madison was 3. I was 26, broke, and juggling 2 part-time jobs. Mom gave us her guest room and her grocery money, and I gave her my pride because that's what survival looks like sometimes. I worked front desks, cleaned offices, folded laundry at hotels, whatever paid. I never complained, not in front of Madison. I wanted her to believe our life was enough. And for a long time, it was. We painted our own Christmas ornaments, made pancake towers on Sunday mornings. We laughed at the cracked tile in the kitchen floor and danced barefoot across it like it was a stage. Back then, I was her whole world. But the world got bigger. Middle school turned into high school. Handmade Valentines weren't cool anymore. Secondhand jeans were embarrassing. She started asking why I couldn't just order pizza like the other moms, or drive a better car. I did what I could. I picked up weekend shifts, sold my engagement ring to buy her a new backpack, bought generic cereal and lied, saying I preferred it. Still, the distance grew. At first it was little things. She stopped kissing me goodbye, rolled her eyes when I called her sweetheart in public, stopped bringing friends home at all. Then came the party. She wanted a sweet 16. Something classy. A few friends, she said. Decorations. A vibe. I said yes, even though I had no clue how I'd pay for it. So I started saving. I told the clinic I'd cover extra shifts when others called out, skipped dinners so I could squirrel away 20 here, 40 there, borrowed decorations from coworkers, dug out my old baking tins from storage. It wasn't a ballroom bash, but it was enough. Or so I thought. I strung paper lights, bought plastic wine glasses to make the table look grown up, made party favors from mason jars and ribbon, cleaned every corner of our little home. The day before, I even went to the salon first time in years. Had my hair trimmed, did my nails myself. I wanted to look like a mother worth introducing, but Madison didn't see effort. She saw embarrassment, and she made sure I knew it. "You're gonna make it weird," she snapped that morning. "Just stay in your room, please." That please hit harder than the shout. It was a request, quiet, clear that I disappear. But here's what Madison didn't understand. I wasn't throwing this party to show off. I wasn't doing it to win back her attention. I was doing it because I never stopped showing up for her, not one single day. And I wasn't going to start hiding now, because the people walking through that front door weren't just coming to see Madison. One of them was about to remind her exactly who her mother really is. The doorbell rang at exactly 5 p.m. Right on cue, Madison came rushing downstairs in her new dress, one I had secretly bought off Facebook Marketplace and dry cleaned just to make her feel like everyone else. She looked beautiful, more grown up than I was ready for, but she didn't even glance in my direction. Not a single word, not a smile, not even a thank you. She breezed past me, adjusting her earrings in the hallway mirror and whispering into her phone. "I swear, if she says anything cringy in front of you guys, just laugh it off," she said. "She doesn't get how things work." The door opened. Her friends started pouring in. Some were polite, offering nervous smiles, commenting on the cute decorations. Others scanned the room like they were doing a social media audit. One girl actually giggled and whispered something while pointing to the hand-drawn welcome sign I'd hung by the stairs. I stood off to the side, trying to make myself useful, rearranging snacks, straightening forks, lighting the birthday candles like none of this bothered me. But it did. And Madison? She was in her element now. Laughing with her friends, tossing her hair over her shoulder, using a voice I barely recognized, higher, sharper, like she was auditioning to be someone else. Every time I stepped near the group, her body tensed. I could feel it like static in the air. When I offered to take a photo, she muttered through clenched teeth, "Mom, please, not now." I nodded and stepped back. Felt like I'd been dismissed from my own home. Susan watched from the kitchen doorway. She hadn't said much since earlier, but I saw the concern in her eyes. "You okay?" she mouthed. I nodded, lying again. Then I heard it. Another girl, tall, blonde, the kind of confident that came from money, asked Madison, "So, where's your dad? I thought he'd be here." Madison hesitated, looked around. And then, "He's busy," she said. "He travels, work stuff." I froze. It wasn't the first time she'd lied about him, but this time it felt different, colder, more practiced. She had fully stepped into this performance and erased me completely in the process. I stood there like furniture, background, noise, disposable. And when the cake came out, the cake I had spent all night making, she didn't even look at me. She blew out the candles and took selfies with her friends like she was the star of a party thrown by no one. Then one of the guests said something that changed everything. "Oh my God, is that Miss Brooks?" The room shifted. Standing in the doorway, holding a small gift bag and smiling politely, was Talia Brooks, Madison's favorite English teacher. Everyone adored her. She was cool, put together, witty, the kind of adult teenagers didn't just tolerate but admired. Madison's jaw dropped. "Miss Brooks, you came?" Talia nodded. "Wouldn't miss it, especially after I found out whose house this was." Madison blinked. "Wait, how do you know?" But Talia had already spotted me. Her face lit up. "Laura?" I smiled, stunned. "Talia, it's been years." She crossed the room and hugged me in front of everyone. Loud enough for the whole room to hear, she said, "This woman right here saved me in college, roomed with me when I had nowhere else to go. She used to tutor half the campus and still work night shifts. I wouldn't be who I am today without her." The silence was thunderous. Madison's face turned bright red. Her mouth hung open. And for the first time all night, she looked at me, really looked. There are moments in life when the air changes, when everything feels suddenly heavier, quieter, clearer. This was one of those moments. Talia's words still echoed in the room. She used to tutor half the campus and still work night shifts. I wouldn't be who I am today without her. Madison stood stiffly beside her friends, caught between confusion and something she didn't yet know how to name. Embarrassment, maybe, but now it was pointed inward. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Because for the first time all night, the attention wasn't on Madison's makeup or playlist or party dress. It was on me, and not because I had forced it, but because someone saw me and wasn't afraid to say so. Talia looked around the room. "You guys have no idea how lucky you are to know Laura. When I had $8 in my bank account and a final paper due, she stayed up all night editing it while feeding a 1-year-old and holding down a graveyard shift. This woman, she shows up. I didn't cry. I thought I might, but instead I just breathed. For 16 years, I had been holding my breath, afraid of how small I must look in Madison's world. In her school, her circle, her Instagram-filtered universe. But now, I was no longer a background character in my own home. I glanced toward the cake table. A few of Madison's friends had drifted over, asking questions. One girl looked at the decorations with fresh eyes and said, "Wait, did your mom make all this?" Madison didn't answer right away. Then, yeah, she did. Not with pride, but not with shame either. It was a start. I walked back toward the kitchen, quietly giving them space. That's what I'd always done, make room, be useful, be invisible. But this time, I didn't disappear. I stood in the doorway and watched as the girls slowly came around to something real, something that didn't cost $300 an hour or come with a brand logo. One of them even reached for a slice of my homemade cake. "This is actually really good." Talia turned to Madison and smiled. "You've got a solid woman raising you, don't miss it." Madison didn't look at me. She looked at the floor and nodded. That was enough for now. Back in the kitchen, my mom, Susan, had tears in her eyes. "Laura," she said, "you didn't need to prove anything, but I'm so glad they saw." I shook my head. I didn't do it for them. I just couldn't hide. Not tonight. Because hiding would have meant I agreed with what Madison said, that I was embarrassing, that I should have disappeared into the background. And no matter how much it hurt to be rejected by my own daughter, I wasn't going to help her erase me. Not when I had survived everything thrown my way. Not when I had raised a child through heartbreak and debt and years of sacrifice. Not when I had held this family together with duct tape, coupons, and prayer. No. Tonight, I had every right to sit at that table. Not just because I baked the cake, not because I tied every ribbon and folded every napkin, but because I was enough. And maybe Madison was finally starting to see it. She didn't say sorry that night. Not yet, but she did do something I didn't expect. When Talia pulled out her phone for a group photo, Madison reached out and gently tugged me into the frame. Her hand brushed mine. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. It's funny how one small gesture, a shared photo, a half smile, the brushing of hands can open a door that's been locked for years. I didn't expect much after the photo. Honestly, I figured it would be one of those polite things teenagers do when they realize they've gone too far. A tiny flicker of guilt before they go right back to their world. But Madison surprised me. After the picture, she lingered near me. Not close enough to make a scene, but close enough to see me. To watch, observe, absorb. And that's when things really shifted. The party buzz picked up again. Laughter returned. Girls posted selfies with the cake. A few even asked if there were seconds. Talia chatted with the other moms who had arrived late, proudly repeating the story of how Laura saved my college GPA and my emotional stability. But Madison didn't join the conversations. She stood in the corner, arms folded, eyes scanning the room like she was seeing everything for the first time with a new lens. At one point, I caught her watching me refill the punch bowl. She didn't look annoyed. She looked confused, curious, maybe even a little embarrassed, not by me this time, but by how she'd acted. When the last of her friends began saying their goodbyes, one of the girls, Emma, I think hugged me and said, "You're like the nicest mom ever." Madison's lucky. That one sentence hit like a beam of sunlight in a dark room. Madison heard it. Her body stiffened slightly. I didn't look at her. I just smiled and said, "Thank you for coming." By 9 p.m., the living room was a soft blur of leftover snacks and half-deflated balloons. The music had stopped. The girls had left, and Madison was still standing in the middle of it all, silent, alone, her arms now hanging by her sides. I walked into the kitchen, started rinsing plates, pretending not to notice, but I felt her before I heard her. "Mom?" I turned slowly. She wasn't crying, not yet, but her face was pale, her lips tight like she was holding back 1,000 things she didn't know how to say. "Yeah, honey?" She looked down at the floor, then back up. "I didn't know Miss Brooks knew you." "She does. We were roommates for 2 years. You never said anything." I shrugged gently. Didn't think it mattered. She stepped forward a little. "You used to help people like that while raising me?" "I still do," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Madison looked around the room, all of it, the handmade decorations, the cake, the thrifted table runners, the folded paper name cards I had written in silver pen. All of it had been done with love she hadn't recognized until someone else pointed it out. She whispered, "I didn't know. I thought you were just—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. "I know what you thought," I said softly. "And I understand." A pause. Then, quietly, with her voice cracking just a little, "I'm sorry, Mom." She didn't shout it, didn't cry dramatically or fall into my arms. She just said it and meant it. And that meant more than anything. I walked over and held her, resting my hand on the back of her head like I did when she was 5 and scared of thunder. "You don't need to be perfect," I whispered. "But you do need to see people clearly, especially the ones who love you." She nodded against my shoulder. And in that moment, I knew something had shifted, not in how she saw me, but in how she saw herself. The house was quiet again. After the last guest had gone, after the leftover cake had been put in the fridge and the balloons had lost their energy and sagged against the ceiling, there was just me and the mess and the warmth still lingering from something that finally felt like peace. Madison had gone up to her room. No slamming doors this time, no yelling, no eye rolls, just a soft "good night, Mom" on the way up the stairs. And that one sentence carried more weight than all the arguments we'd had in the past year. I stood in the living room with a trash bag in one hand and a crumpled streamer in the other, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I let myself feel proud. Not the quiet kind I'd always carried alone, but real, full-bodied pride. Not because the party had turned out fine, not because Talia Brooks had sung my praises, or because Madison's friends had been polite, but because I had stayed. I stayed in the room. I stayed in my truth. And I didn't let my daughter's shame shrink me. That was a first. I've spent so many years thinking motherhood meant shrinking myself to lift her up, saying yes when I wanted to say no, hiding my exhaustion with a smile, folding myself into smaller and smaller corners so she could have space to grow. But I realized something that night. You don't raise strong children by pretending you're not human. You raise them by letting them see you. Not just when you're nurturing, but when you're standing tall, even when your knees are shaking. The next morning, something unexpected happened. Madison came downstairs before I did. She had already made coffee. It was watery and bitter, but the gesture was everything. She was sitting at the table, scrolling through her phone when I entered the kitchen. "Morning," I said. "Morning," she replied, her voice soft but present. Then she held out her phone. "Miss Brooks posted this." I walked over and looked. It was the photo she had taken at the party, me and Madison side by side. My hair was slightly frizzy, my dress a bit wrinkled from the long day, but I looked grounded. The caption read, "The strongest people rarely talk about what they've overcome. They just keep showing up with open hands and open hearts. Shout out to real mothers, the ones who build everything from nothing and still give it away freely." Madison looked up at me. "I didn't know people saw you like that," she said. I smiled. "I didn't know you could. We didn't talk about the fight, or the party, or the things said that can't be unsaid." But she cleared the table without being asked. She folded the banner. She wrapped the leftover cake. And I could feel it, not a perfect fix, but a beginning, a shift. A new chapter between us, written not in grand gestures but in small, consistent ones. Later that week, she even brought a friend over after school, introduced me properly. Let me be part of her world again, if only a little. That's the thing about motherhood. It's not about being flawless. It's about being real and showing your children how to be the same. I spent so long trying not to embarrass her. Turns out the only thing she ever needed was to see me stop apologizing for who I am. And from now on, I won't disappear. I'll bake the cake. I'll light the candles. And I'll take up space. Because I've earned it.